reasons for his Indy car, but I in fact did pick a BMW, surprise, and I picked the CSL that's right out here for 3 reasons. That is one of only 5 real CSL race cars that came to the United States and ran. And I was at Daytona in 1976 and saw that. There were 2 other CSLs with it, and one of them was Peter Gregg's, as Hurley said. And there were 2 others. Benny Parsons drove one and David Hobbs drove one with teammates. And that was, I believe, that was the David Hobbs car. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is I happen to have a 71 3.0 CSI, so it makes it even closer to my heart. And that's as much a road car. If you look at that 35, 36 years ago, it still has its vent windows in it, still has glass in it. I mean, that was a road car that was made into a race car. And to me, that was, getting back to what Hurley said, that was real racing back in those days. That thing was a blast. And just love the looks of it. And the third and last reason is they came all the way from San Francisco with that car to be here. And I think that is absolutely terrific. BMW San Francisco owns that car. They drove all the way from the West Coast to be part of our event. So if Bill Watson is here, Bill, are you here? Oh, let me present it to you, and then Boris can go ahead, and then we can do the People's Choice. Bill is, I guess, caretaker is as good a word as any. Builder, caretaker, takes, just handles the car. That car, by the way, in 1976 was bought by Vasek Polak in Hermosa Beach, California, who was a huge Porsche owner and race car team owner, and also did BMWs, quite a few BMWs, and that was bought by Henry Schmidt, who is the owner of BMW San Francisco, and he's had it for a number of years. And does a lot of vintage racing with it. But Bill, if you would, first of all, thank you. Appreciate coming all this way. And if you would, just a couple of words.
Sure. It's a privilege to be here. We're really, really fortunate to be at this site. And I have the privilege of being a conservator. And to me, that's what historic racing is about. I came back up kind of in the era when Hurley and Boris were talking. And even though I'm a BMW guy for 40 years, I need to say that Hurley Haywood is, you being here now, you're in the presence of one of the greatest drivers in history, period. And maybe you already know that. But when he talks about going back to Daytona, I don't think there's anyone who more deserves to be there than him. There's a very esteemed race engineer who, unsolicited, said to me a few years ago when we were talking about Hurley. He said, Hurley rarely had the fastest lap, but regardless of the event, Hurley put more laps in at the end of the session. He covered more ground than anybody else would. So that's the brilliance of Hurley Haywood, is not just necessarily the fastest lap, but if you want a guy that's going to get your car to cover more ground in less time than anybody else, he's going to bring the car home. That's the guy. So that's Hurley Haywood. Thank you for this car here was brought over by BMW, raced in the second half of 75 and 76, and we're just real fortunate to have the chance to bring the car here. And I'm going to ask Phil's indulgence for just 1 second to say, going back to the vintage cars, the other CSL we brought belongs to Scott Hughes, who's flying back from doing a 13-hour race last night in Danville to drive a 51 CSL, which won Le Mans in 73. So he's going to start the endurance race at the back of the pack, and you'll watch this 40-year-old CSL trying to pick its way through all this more modern machinery. So you got to see it. Thank you very much.